Hello friends and sunflowers, my name is Lena and welcome to my channel. Today, we don't have a theory. Today's gonna be a little bit different. Today is the long-awaited TXT reading list. I don't know if that's what I'm gonna call this, but basically if you're a MOA and you kind of like the storyline for TXT, these are the books for you. If you are familiar with TXT, you know, at least in the Magic album, they are around a lot of books. They're in a library. They've also had books just like, you know, here and there, sprinkled in other places. But a lot of the books that are referenced have sort of similar themes to like TXT's own story. And, you know, some things that they reference are really obvious, really well known or common, like Harry Potter, Alice in Wonderland. Even like the Chronicles of Narnia isn't really talked about that much, but it has like a lot of similarities. We're not going to be talking about those three at all today. Sorry. They're really common. I feel like a lot of people know what they are at least, or at least are familiar with the stories, especially Harry Potter and Alice in Wonderland. Instead, I picked a whole bunch and read a bunch, and I've somehow narrowed it down to 5 books that I think MOA should read if they are interested in TXT's storyline. This was really hard. There might be a part 2 because I filmed this video once before, and I had twice the amount of books that I have here today, and it was really hard to cut them out, so I also want to give a shout out to my patrons over on Patreon because they're the ones who voted that this video is the one that I would be doing first out of my list of longer videos that I have been working on. Without further ado, let me get to talking about the books that are sort of similar to TXT's fun, magical storyline. I cannot start this list off without talking about The Alchemaster's Apprentice by Walter Moores. I actually think this is probably the most important book on this list, mainly because I think this is kind of the inspiration for what we sort of see with like the contracts and the cat. Let me talk to you about it a little bit. This book was prominently featured as it was being held by Yeonjun in the Sanctuary version of the Dream Chapter Magic album. A lot of these books will be from the Magic album. But this book has so many similarities to the TXT universe, which is why I need to start with it. Contracts are a thing. Magic is a thing. Alchemy and magic are sort of similar in this regard, but, you know, they're a little bit different. Immortality is a theme in here. There's a cat. Actually, it's a krat, not a cat. He's on the cover in the English version. Specifically, it's actually just one Krat, who is our main character, named Echo. And he is the only Krat left in the city that this story takes place in, which is called Malaisie. I actually don't know how to pronounce it. Anyways, Echo, our Krat's master, recently died, and so kind of left him as a stray. And, like, everyone in this town are super sick because of this Alchemaster that, like, resides over and basically terrorizes the town, let's be honest. Anyways, he is literally, like, days from death when the Alchemaster comes across our Krat and strikes a deal. He will, you know, take him in, feed him, give him tons of knowledge for 1 full month, but at the end of the month he will kill our main character, take him out, and render down his fat for alchemical purposes. Which is kind of dark, I know, but you know what? TXT story is a little dark too, so... Anyways, Echo believes he's gonna die anyways, so he's like, heck yeah, let me live it up in luxury before this happens. So the most interesting thing about this is that Krats are really intelligent. They can understand and speak any language without having priorly learned it. They're able to absorb and remember all information. They're basically like geniuses. And so the Alchemaster is making use of that, obviously, to achieve his larger goal related to immortality. However, our Krat quickly realizes that he actually doesn't want to be in this contract anymore. Believe it or not, he doesn't want to die at the end of this month. And a lot of the narrative kind of follows him like trying to get out of this contract, trying to figure out a way to get out of this contract. It really picks up in the second half of this book. The beginning is a little bit slow, but if you like anything related to cooking, they do a lot of like cooking in the beginning of this one, and I found it particularly interesting, but I could see why maybe someone wouldn't like it. But yeah, if you like cooking and like various alchemical processes, this is the book for you. Overall, I really enjoyed this read. I definitely see the inspiration surrounding contracts with it. TXT has the like alchemical, magical things, which I kind of feel like weaves its way into their story as well. And it does make me wonder if the Krat can be related to our cat somehow, or if Our cat actually takes the more looming role of the alchemaster because of the contracts and stuff. But if you read it, please let me know what you think. Overall, I give this a 7 out of 10. It was quite an enjoyable read. The second book on this list is The Time of the Fireflies by Kimberly Griffiths Little. This book was one of my favorites that I read out of all of them. I don't know if it was the favorite, but it was definitely like up there. And in my mind, I actually think that this story has the most to do with what TXT are actually experiencing, like what they're actually going through. So it follows our main character, Larissa, and she recently went through a rather traumatic incident where she was bullied and she almost drowned. However, her family owns an antique shop, and on the second floor of the antique shop are all these lovely unplugged antique phones, and she gets a phone call from one of these phones that's unplugged. And thus begins some very interesting shenanigans. So she ends up following the Fireflies, hence the title of this story, and ends up literally traveling with the Fireflies through time to her old family home, like her family history. And she slowly starts to discover that there is a curse that is placed on her family. Honestly, this story is everything a TXT fan could want. Let me just say, if you like TXT story, you will like this book. It has everything like crazy time travel, creepy dolls, curses, and yes, there's even a fire. Not to mention, it deals really well with themes surrounding bullying and just like family and friendship and like how you deal with certain situations. To be honest, the whole time I was reading it, I couldn't help but think of the music video for Runaway because there was a lot of similarities in terms of like theme with it. So if you like Runaway, I mean, this book is definitely a 9 out of 10 for me. If you kind of like the creepy undertones without being like too in your face, this is definitely the book for you. There's like cobwebs of things that could be pretty creepy if you think about it that way, but it's not really meant to be taken in that sense. This one is definitely a big recommendation for me. Number 3 is The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making by Catherine M. Valente? That is probably the longest title that you've ever heard in your life, and if that doesn't scream TXT to you, then I don't know what will. I actually came across this book by, like, accident, just, like, browsing the library, and this is the only book that I am going to talk about here that is not explicitly referenced by TXT. However, there's so many similarities with the story, I had to include it because I just couldn't not include it. However, I saw this cover. It has a dragon, or what looks like a dragon. It's actually a wyvern. And I picked it up for fun. Anyways, it was a long title. There was like a dragon on the cover, something about fairyland. I mean, magic that drew me right in. This is so incredibly similar to like their perceivable storyline, especially early on. First thing to know about this book is that it's essentially a retelling of Alice in Wonderland. And I know we said we weren't going to do Alice in Wonderland, but it has a girl who is sort of whisked off to a land where things don't make sense, and there's weird rules in this world, and you know, things kind of, places move around. It's very similar if you've read the original Alice in Wonderland. It's a very similar concept in terms of feel. Nonsensical in a way. The difference is that this book actually follows a more linear storyline that is not so out there that you feel like you don't know what's going on. The nonsense actually does start to feel like there's actually some sense to it, if that makes sense. How many times did I say sense in that sentence? This book also has a Marquess, which you can sort of look at as like another version of the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. She also has a panther. So hello, cat. Puma. Also, it's sort of similar to the Bandersnatch, so she has sort of beaten some logic and sense and bureaucracy into this fairyland world and is generally hated for it. Of course, Alice, who is trying to help various inhabitants of fairyland, ends up striking a deal with the Marquess. She has to go to the worsted wood and collect something for her. Once again, contracts are a theme in this book. Oh, and the story also deals with true names. I literally can't. If you watched the Dooms Night or my video on the Dooms Night, true names is like a category in that video, and there's some thoughts about true names and how they relate to TXT. So I was literally blown away as I was reading this, you guys. This book kind of just felt like I was reading a whimsical classic, and I loved it, and it tied in so well with so many themes from TXT. If you like TXT story, you will 100% like this book. 9 out of 10, I would read it again. Number 4 is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. So, First, this is not only a book, but also a movie. And both of these are really good, and I don't say that often. The movie is amazing. If you have not seen the movie, you should. Thank you, Tim Burton. If you have seen the movie, and you like creepy things, you are 100% going to like the book. Because it kind of just like adds like more depth to the world. There are definitely differences between the book and the movie, as there usually are. Not enough to be like totally different stories or anything like that, but also I feel like there's a lot of value in both mediums of the storytelling. So it kind of feels different, but like with characters that you're familiar with. Or maybe you're not, I don't know. I should note that I don't particularly like scary things, and this has the right amount of scary for me, where I'm just like, okay, I'm terrified out of my wits, but I'm gonna keep going. Also, this is why this is the only frightening book on this list. I'm so sorry. I know y'all wanted probably, I don't know, Stephen King's It, but I already talked about that book in another video anyway. This book is, I guess, technically not shown at all, but it's been so compared to Runaway, and by extension Magic Island, that I really couldn't not include it. I can definitely see some basis of inspiration, especially related to like the whole door thing, in relation to the movie. This story follows Coraline, a girl who has just moved into a creepy old house with her parents, who are very neglectful of her. And the whole place has these weird neighbors who are very unsettling. They do creepy, tea leaf readings and stuff like that. She does not like them. A door that leads to nowhere is discovered in the house, which, by the way, in the book is not a small door like the movie, but actually a huge, large, ornate door. Through this door we discover a corridor to another world, like literally other world, which at first glance seems to be a better reality. More loving parents and toys, and her neighbors seem to exist to entertain her. Oh, and there's also a cat who talks. But it's soon discovered that not is all as it seems when her parents go missing. And Coraline learns, no thanks to the cat, that they're actually trapped in the mirror. And she realizes she must go back to the other mother in the other world to save them. This story contains creepy rats, portals, talking cats, dysfunctional families, and of course, ghosts. Obviously, the largest similarity here is the portal to the other world, which we almost directly get in TXT's Runaway music video, but also just the idea of Magic Island being like a better place to be, but it's maybe not what you think it is. Specifically, I feel like this fits the like Magic Arcadia version of the album, because it's kind of got like the dark, creepy vibes, and it's like the nighttime version of the Sanctuary album. Plus, the word Arcadia implies like an idyllic innocence, so in Runaway it's like a perfect world they fall into. This is the same for Coraline. This is the sort of story that like once you read it or watch the movie, it sort of lives in the corner of your mind, and it kind of scratches to the surface and inspires like a deeper thought of what exists beyond our perception, just whenever you happen to see a pair of black shiny buttons. Also, I assume that if you're here, you're into theories, and so I do recommend a channel called A Bit Frank. She does a lot of like breakdowns and theories related to like creepy things, but especially Coraline. And yeah, I really recommend that if you want to find your creepy fix a little bit more. Overall, 10 out of 10. This is an amazing read. I love this story. Number 5. Gosh, I can't believe I only am doing 5, but you know what? Can't have too long of a video for this. This book is The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North. This book was seen in the Sanctuary photos. This book is my favorite on this whole list. I don't know if it necessarily is like classic the way that Coraline is, but the concept and the ideas that it presents are just so intriguing. The First 15 Lives of Harry August is about our main character, Harry August. Harry is special though, because every time that he reaches the end of his life, he is reborn the next literal like universe cycle again. Like he goes through it again, but always as himself. He's always reborn as the same person on the same time, etc., with all of his previous memories intact. So he lives through his first life, and then suddenly he's reborn again as the same person. And the way it's framed, it's like whenever the entire universe restarts, they just go through it again. And it's very interesting. So in a way, it's kind of like a time travel related book. I don't know if time travel is the right word, but it does deal with time. So of course, there's our first connection to TXT. Anyways, these sorts of people are pretty rare, obviously. They are called Kala Chakra. But eventually they sort of get on with the program, and they realize they're like living these lives over and over again. They kind of form these clubs where they can meet each other and help each other out. So if you happen to get really rich In one timeline, you can kind of like donate your money to this club so that you can help the other people who keep going in the cycle. Generally, they're all friends with each other. Generally. The problem, of course, arises when Harry August, on the deathbed of his 11th cycle, is approached by a young Kalachakra girl, and she tells him the world is dying. Each cycle sees the death of the world come faster, and the source needs to be found, especially because it means that several Kalachakras can never exist again. They will no longer exist because the world is dying too soon for them to ever be reborn. As in, you were literally never born in the first place. Which is, of course, as you can imagine, the one way to, completely off a Kalachakra. Make it so they're never born. Every time. Harry August himself, however, is a little bit suspicious that the death of the world might actually be related to himself, and he intends to find a way to fix it. Also, I can't get into this because it's a major spoiler, but there is a huge focus on something called a quantum mirror, which is another connection to TXT. And when I read that part of the book, let me tell you, I got so excited because it was just such a really cool concept. Anyways, this story is not told in a linear fashion, but rather it kind of presents facts to you when you actually need to hear them. Sort of like TXT. Thank you, Hybe, for never giving us things in order. You'll be in the middle of his 13th life, and then he'll jump back to the 3rd because, there's something that happened in the 3rd life that is now relevant in the 13th, so we can ruminate about it. But yeah, it really works the way that it's told. And you kind of like put the pieces together and you're like, oh my god. I honestly think this book would make an excellent movie, specifically for that reason, because it does sort of jump around the timeline. I mean, the visual representation would be so good. I think some people might find the writing in this book a little bit long-winded and over-explained, but I think it just kind of adds to it. There is something that I want to mention. The chapters in this book are very short. There's almost an excessive amount of chapters. There's 82 chapters in this book. But they kind of divide the chapters, I guess, whenever you jump in time, so it kind of makes sense. So you're kind of like, oh, that chapter was literally 3 sentences and 1 single page. Nice. Anyways, it is incredibly interesting, and it deals with a lot of complex, sometimes a little bit darker problems, but it has a really good sense of humor as well, so it's not all dark. I think it has a really good balance. Overall, this book for me is a 9 out of 10. If you don't read anything else on this list, please read this book. Selfishly, I must say I do want a movie of it, so the more people that know it, the higher my chance goes that I get a film. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that you had fun listening to me go off on a tangent about books. This is my christening to booktube. If you did like this video, let me know if you want a part 2, or if maybe you want an anime version of this, because we all know TXT and anime kind of go together. Also, I just want an excuse to watch more anime, so if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe with notifications turned on so that you're notified every single time that I post a new video. All of my social media is linked down in the description below, and of course, I wanted to give a shout out again to my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for voting for this video. Thank you so much for your support. I could not do this without you. As it is, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay sunny, everyone. Bye! Oh my god, okay. Done! Check that off my to-do list. Finally, it's only been a month since the first time I recorded it. Okay, bye.